necessarily a.
Right. So just the last point, and I'll sit down. You know, when I first started to speak to you guys, and I said that original email inviting you to my house was very personal. The more I thought about it, it's bigger than that. And because if you look at it from no other way than individual value of the properties on the lake, that's the reason all those communities have that policy. It's not because only this community has people that want the privacy with the fence. It's because they made the decision, we're going to secure and we're going to put this in place so that the values are secured. When we do assessments, when somebody decides to sell their home, they have all those things. So if you change it, you can be negatively affecting, or if you make changes, make sure you consider that that's a big piece of the value of the real estate. And like you said, the lake is a huge asset in this community. And so I think we should work hard to keep it that way. So, all right, thank you very much for listening to my rant.
There's actually two people want to talk.
There's open dialogue here.
Yeah, just one. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just,
There's two.
am I first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Want to get the tomatoes thrown this way. No, I agree 100% with what you just said. For the last 20 years, I've lived in seaside communities in Southern California. A lot of the smaller houses over that period of time, you could drive down those streets and you could see the ocean. But as the values went up and people started redoing those homes, they put screen fences up. And now literally in La Jolla Shores, a lot of those places, Bird Rock area, you can drive down that same street and you wouldn't even know the ocean is there except you can smell salt. I mean, the people across the street cannot see anything because it's just totally screened off. So the value of being close to the ocean is diminished entirely unless you happen to back up to it. It's great for the people to back up to it, to screen it off, you know, it's their view, but it's not great for the community. It's no longer even considered like a seaside community. And I would hate to see something like that happen here because it happens over time. And all of a sudden, like you say, that 8-foot fence right back there, imagine that as people add and replace and add all along Peninsula back there. And all of a sudden, you know, it's not just screening your backyard. Nobody even knows you live on the lake anymore because you can't see it. And if you don't think that can happen, take a drive up and down Southern California Highway 1.
One more behind you there. Dr. Mankoff.
Hey.
I didn't see you back there.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I just wanted to commend you for a well-researched, cohesive, mature presentation that hopefully will be the first of many. I think that's the kind of thing we need to see. So, nice job on that. You convinced me. I live on the lake, and I like Clint. I would go back and forth on this type of topic, you know, from a personal perspective, thinking privacy. But it's the council's job to kind of really think at it from the perspective of the entire town. And that's the hard part of being on the council is I'm sure there's some people that came up to them that wanted the privacy, and there are people that come up to them and say they want the view. My personal perspective is that when you look at the entire town, there are far more many people that are going to be affected by loss of view than by the few people who are going to gain some privacy. So that's my personal perspective.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Well, one other thing, Mark, I appreciate you putting this together, right? This has led to a good discussion. And so, I mean, this is...
Yeah, I mean, look, whichever way this goes, is my job is to bring ordinances based on, let's see. So, Sam, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Yes.
So, you keep saying our fence ordinance isn't out of date or whatever. We have there are things in here which say every fence will be inspected. We don't do inspections of fences. There are no inspections of fences. It says there are different things in the old ordinance. Technically, we don't do those.
Yeah, really, in reference to
That's why,
and structure.
Yeah.
right, that's why we actually are doing the changes, because it's part of this was that the fence ordinance from 2003 has got stuff in it, procedures and things. We don't do those anymore. So it needed to be cleaned up. One of the problems with that fence ordinance was what's a fence? It defined a fence to be a barrier, just a barrier. Oh my God, what's a barrier? Well, your truck is a barrier if it's parked in the backyard. It was driving us nuts with, in 2003, I guess the people were saner then, they used the word barrier for a fence. Well, lately, people have become insane over what they consider to be a barrier. Barriers became anything from garbage cans to outdoor kitchens to the house itself. Somebody tried to not let them build on the house next door to them because they said it was a barrier. So that means it's a fence. And the house is taller than 8 feet. So part of this rewrite was we had to get the technical thing squared away. So that's one of the things we had to do. Redefine the word fence to be something that's more normal. And then spur this discussion on what should we do with this waterfront stuff. That was my whole intent. Now, speaking to the council, if you decide to do something else, as long as we have the correct procedures in the other part of the ordinance, which is fine, as long as we have the definition of the fence right, whatever you choose to do, I support you. Whatever you want to do, you've got my support. So I'm fine with that. So if the consensus is we don't want to allow any solid fences, if that's the consensus that it's leaning, then do it.
Yeah, I think my position is next month we see that paragraph 3 struck. Just,
Okay.
the rest of it is.
Do you want to do it now, is my question.
Well, we don't have the other edits.
Oh, okay, that's true. Okay.
And it seems to me that we've raised a number of issues. Like it sounds like it would almost be easier to take the old one, strike out a couple of procedural things, and leave everything else the same, rather than introducing all new verbiage, right? So maybe that's something that we need to consider.
Yeah, the old one is,
However we get from A to B, that's
Okay.
there.
all right, so we're gonna table this then, and we will, Gary, you can say.
No, I definitely like the wide open field. The fences would be out as far as I'm concerned, solid fences.
All right, anyone else? Liz?
I think I would agree with Ray as well.
Okay. All right, very good. All right. Yeah, thanks, I appreciate it, Jeff,
Yeah,
putting this together.
Thank you for inviting us to your home.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time in coming.
No, absolutely.
All right, number 7 is a discussion of the dark skies initiative. This is Ed.
Okay, just a quick update. First of all, I want to thank Clint for adding some dark sky information to the website. It's on the homepage. I don't know whether, has anyone seen it? No? Okay, well, it's there. And,
There was a name on it.
yeah, was it? Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't see it, I saw it.
I did.
Oh,
Okay. There on the homepage, there are, I think about 5 or maybe now, yeah, 5, I think, links to some information about the project or the initiative and the Dark Sky organization. You can see them listed there on the left-hand side in the topics that are covered. It's very interesting information, and I encourage you to go out and look at it when you have a chance. And we've also recently added
It's embedded.
a video, I guess, entitled Losing the Dark. It's about 6.5 minutes long. It's very short, but very well put together. That gives an overview of that, kind of what's happening to our skies. So the next thing is, as far as the Dark Skies Committee, we do have Cheryl France has become a new committee member. And again, if anyone else is interested, they can certainly just call me or text me or whatever. And I think I'm looking for maybe 1 or so additional folks to assist with the effort. We have established contact with the International IDA Association. They created a working file where they will maintain a record and updates of our efforts to obtain the designation. We completed an inventory of the street lights, both in the shores as well as in the village. The shores, of course, has about 10 globe lights, and the village has, I think, about 22 barn lights. None of them obviously are IDA, meet the IDA standard. So we have had a meeting with CoServe last month. They are identifying costs to change our existing infrastructure streetlights to be dark skies compliant. I'm almost afraid to find out what they're going to charge us to do that, and we certainly may not do that, but we needed to ask the question. There are kits available to retrofit the glow lights in the shores, and there are shields available that would also make the barn lights on this side of town compliant as well. And the last thing that will be a major effort is to draft a lighting ordinance, which has been begun, and you'll hear more about that over the next several months as we finish that. Any questions? Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Ed. All right, next up on the agenda is number 8, consideration and ordinance regulating wireless network facilities within the public right-of-way. Linda, this one's on you.
This ordinance is what you saw last month. Mr. Madison, I believe, is here. He reviewed Senate Bill 1034 and the law that they signed into effect. I've included his emails in the packet.
We're going to go over the 30-page long ordinance.
I was hoping you had gone over the 30-page plus ordinance.
I'm not a voting member. I can't, unless they tie, I'm not voting, so
That doesn't,
that's on them.
doesn't excuse you.
Yeah, so did anybody have any questions for Linda on it? Anybody on the council?
Yeah, I gotta just tell Chad, so I went through that thing line by line, and it was pretty interesting. I thought I knew a little bit about that stuff, but I learned quite a bit, obviously from somebody in the industry. So I like the way that you tailored that, number one, and I like the way that they actually gave us the flexibility to be able to, again, it's the same thing we discussed with the fence, kind of preserve the community as it is. So it seemed like the law itself was pretty extensive, it seemed like your changes were pretty extensive, but when it came together, I thought it was a pretty good read. I appreciate your work, I think it definitely has my support.
Any other issues? Thank you. Any questions? Issues? Motions?
Thanks for doing homework on that,
Yes.
Chair.
I appreciate you, Linda, doing the hard work on that as well. I know there's a lot of concern across Texas. This is a major negative. And there's a lot of concern across all the different cities. So that's very good. And we're very fortunate to have somebody in town that knows it like the back of their hand. So that worked out well. Does anybody have a motion? Anybody have any concerns, comments? Any question? Dan, you want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve it as, with the changes.
To be clear, there were no changes proposed.
He added on the river tonight.
He reviewed the law, he didn't change the ordinance. There's no changes in the ordinance.
My proposal was actually the establishment of design districts and adoption of proper camouflage or obfuscation.
There were design districts that were established in the ordinance. There's a design manual that's adopted in the ordinance, and there were design restrictions placed in the ordinance. I didn't go into the concealment because we're talking about the small cell stuff.
Yes, it's imperative that you actually have that.
Yeah,
I understand that. I didn't have language for that, and there wasn't specific language proposed.
So do we need to convert what he said into different language?
It's not included in the ordinance. Correct.
All right, so it could be me. So I went through and I read the ordinance before, and then I read the entire submission that he had, and I read them together, and they merged together into one single document. So we're not voting on that?
The ordinance that's before you is what you saw last month. Mr. Madison, I emailed back and forth about reviewing the ordinance. maybe there was a misunderstanding. I thought there was going to be language proposed and changes directly to the ordinance. So that was what I was waiting on. That didn't happen.
That's not how the legislation is written. You literally just have to establish very, very specific or non-specific, depending on how obfuscated you want to be in the language. Your design districts, your historical districts, as well as the establishment of dedicated poles, and come up with rigorous, rigid criteria for the method of camouflage, like part numbers.
I don't have the skill set to do that.
I understand, but my proposal is that you actually establish a design forum, if you will, amongst the town members and go shopping. I'm not going to do that because people might not they might not like my choices. I'm partial to pink hippos. I'm pretty sure you don't want pink hippos, that's not poles, as an example. But I did give a couple of URLs where you can go search and see what some of the common part numbers are. There's lots of esoteric choices or generic, but
Any establishment of a committee or anything like that would have to come from the council.
right, and I propose that all in the email.
Yeah, I thought what we were voting on was the proposal that was put together, the total encompass thing, no?
Any
Or either way.
creation of any kind of a committee would have to come from council. That's not in the ordinance. No.
Okay, so.
The ordinance itself establishes design districts, it establishes camouflage, it doesn't talk about the creating it to look like a cactus or a palm tree, because that is outside of my ability to create. He recommended I don't remember what you called it, but a committee, and that has to come from council. So I can't write that in an ordinance until council gives direction and creates that.
So it sounds like the ordinance is generic, but it needs specificity to say that we want pink cactuses we want specificity in designs.
I think if I understand, that's what he's recommending.
We don't
yes.
have, he didn't provide any specificity because he likes pink ribbons and we might like blue ribbons or whatever.
Right.
So Chad didn't provide the specificity.
Correct, that's not within my purview. I gave guidance on what the council needed to do.
And then, so obtaining that specificity is either somebody deciding it's going to be palm trees, writing it in the ordinance, and then we vote on it, it's palm trees. And then if we want to change it later, we change it later.
Right now, it's natural colors, has to blend in with the environment. There's size restrictions, there's restrictions on poles. The design districts are established to be any area that has decorative poles, which right now is 100% of the town. And I would assume that any development that comes into the town is also going to comply with the decorative poles. So all of that would be covered in the design district, the entirety of the town.
So if I interpret, this to me is analogous to when we had the billboard issues, where we knew there was an issue coming, we had to get an ordinance to block out billboards. So we put one in place, it wasn't perfect, it covered all the nuts and bolts there. So we go back later and actually make it perfect, the way we wanted it. And I think we did have the side ordinance of the ETJ. So my question is,
I would think that this is more thought through than that.
no, but in other words, we wanted to get something in place first. We perfected it after it was there to cover our rear ends.
Sure.
Does this cover our rear ends now until we get together 5 people who want to come up with design standards, whether they're cactuses or...
If
That's, I
council
guess-
wants to make changes, this is certainly better than nothing. Right now, we have no protection.
That's kind of where I don't have a problem. That's kind of, that's the question at hand. Putting something in place to cover us,
That's kind of what we've done with a lot of stuff, right?
I think we-
Fill the gaps and then come back and.
then come back and we put whoever actually is vested and wants to come up with the specificity comes
Chad, let me,
later.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean,
Chad, let me ask you a question. Again, I read the thing like 3 times, it was pretty long, so I just want to be real clear. What she's suggesting is we pass it as it is, and then I'm assuming we're going to form some sort of committee to go on to the things that you went on to. That's the way I'm hearing this discussion go.
All I'm asking is
Is that
that's
what
one
we're
option.
saying? Because I've read your thing as, I thought it was gonna be passed, all with those comments in there, and then we were gonna do the additional steps that were outlined in your diagram. That's what I thought we were doing, so I'm really glad, Linda, that we stopped and, took a pause here to make sure we get this right. But Jed, if we go down this path of just doing the ordinance as is, and then we come back to your stuff, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. The way she's described the design districts, though, you're going to end up with a bunch of towers or antenna that are painted tan, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So that's why you have to be incredibly specific with your method of
Right.
camouflage. Don't say, oh, it has to be desert colors. Fine, you'll end up with a 60-foot erector set that's tan. That's not what we want in this town. As long as in the design districts you establish, it must be this part number for standalone, or if it's on a lamp, it has to use this camouflage. They have to adhere to that. It's at their dime.
Yeah, my concern is that level of specificity is not something we're gonna be able to turn around on a dime. Given the skill set.
Understood, but also in my notes, as
Yeah.
far as small cell,
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that for 2 years.
Okay.
The technology's not there. It's literally not been decided. I understand the last month we were talking about people were waiting at the door at Frisco. That's hyperbole. I understand what you're getting at, but it's not gonna happen. I would encourage you to pick something, I suppose, less generic than the tan towers. Pick a part number, and then go through and amend it when you actually get more specific with.
Could you clear, I don't know what you mean by pick a part number. I don't know what that means.
You're smarter than that. Come
No,
on.
part number of what? You mean like
You know what a part number is?
On what? A part number on a car engine? I don't know what you mean by a part number on.
So if you're part of the thread, I had actually emailed several places that actually manufacture these obfuscated towers. They have a part number. Put that in your design district, and they have to buy that part number.
Okay.
So Linda, can we put that, at least that specific verbiage in to this ordinance?
Council can do whatever you want. That's why I didn't do it.
I
because
know,
It's
but that's what
for
I'm
y'all to decide.
So, Jed, is there any other change you would put in there? I
I
remember,
asked him to review the ordinance.
I'm sorry.
I did ask him to review the ordinance, so
I did.
I'm not sure
I
how
did.
much you read.
I read it all.
Okay.
And like I said, the ordinance is quite irrelevant because the legislation is, it gives you a perfect path on what to do. You could literally not have this ordinance, and as long as you have a design district, that takes care of everything.
So is it the establishment of the design district?
To be clear though, the design district has to be established by ordinance.
Right, I get that. And is it in there now? Because there's a lot of
Yes.
communication, okay.
The
Right, so I
design district is.
I had asked if we had ever established design districts.
And we haven't.
Correct, I never got that answer.
It's in the
Well-
ordinance.
Okay, so in this ordinance, we will create a design district. Okay?
Correct.
Now you're saying, when we do that, be a lot more specific, right? Part number or whatever, right? And then if we pass that, does that get us 3/4 of the way?
It gets you all the way.
Okay. So from a verbiage standpoint, can we, for sake of time here, can we scroll to the part that we've got the tan tower thing? And can we make that change? And I apologize, I don't have the, was there one in the email?
It doesn't say tan tower, you just said colors.
We have to pick what type of camouflage and put that part number in
Yeah, but he
there.
put that in his email, I read all that, right?
I gave examples. I'm
I
not
know
going
that.
to choose to paint it.
But it doesn't matter which one we choose, we're just trying to lock it down for a minute so we can go
Yeah.
ahead and collect it.
So you need to define the manufacturer and the part number that you desire for the towers. So I gave you examples of manufacturers that produce the camouflage towers.
Yeah,
That's, I've got no stake in that company. Pick a company,
Neither do
Google
we.
it, there's tons.
We can't put palm trees. This is not a beach.
I don't know that we're gonna get specificity live as we're sitting here now.
I would hope not.
I don't see it. So again, back to the initial question. Yeah, that may take, based on our current rate of speed, that may take 4 months from now before we figure this out. So
Sure.
the question is it better to have a placeholder in place, so if somebody walks in the door, however infrequent that may be, to say, we do have an ordinance. I don't see any downside.
There's actually no downside to this whatsoever. I wasn't aware that this ordinance was the only time they'd ever defined design districts.
Yeah, we've never
Yeah,
known.
that's what was not clear to me.
So I don't really.
So we need that.
You agree, there's no downside to putting the ordinance now.
No, not
And
at all.
then making changes, figuring out part numbers and that stuff and coming back.
Correct.
So I think we ought to cover ourselves. That's my opinion. Ed, what do you have for my opinion?
It makes sense to me as well.
Liz?
Yes.
Let's go ahead and
Okay, so,
And I would, let me double check, I have no vested interest in the part numbers either.
Right.
I don't care.
so okay, thank you very much for the clarity, because that was clearly key. So I'll go back to my original thing and say, but I won't put changes in. I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance. Okay, as written.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
second.
Second from Gary. All those in favor? Thank you much.
Are we going to define a
Thanks a
council
lot,
now?
Chad.
Are we going to define a team to
Okay,
pick
so
those
that's
partners?
what's missing, is that we need to take the next step
Yeah.
and go through that piece.
All right.
So we need to form a committee so we can pick departments.
Yeah,
Item number
it's not on
9
the
is a
agenda,
discussion
unfortunately, but you're right.
of the
That's the next
finance
agenda.
and audit committee. So Liz, that's you. Discussion of the finance and audit committee.
I just have a small update. Last meeting is the first time that this was brought up, and so this is just a rough draft. I did go back and, Googled towns or cities in Texas with a finance and audit committee, and I pulled up at least like 18. I emailed them to Clint. It is my intention to go to the city of Corinth on the 18th of October, 2 p.m. and just be there at their next finance and audit committee to see how it goes. I compared what their role is and their purpose to my rough draft, and it kind of coincides a lot, so I think that would be a good place to go and visit and kind of use as an example. I know we have some citizens that have submitted their application, but we're possibly not at that point yet. If any of those citizens that applied are interested in coming with me, October 18th, City of Corinth, Town Hall, 2 p.m. Their Finance and Audit Committee will be meeting.
Are you the only councilman in the room?
Well, I
Okay.
invited you, but
Right.
you have.
Well, I work, so, as of yesterday, I got that worked out, so I can go, but if nobody else is lined up, so we don't have a quorum issue, I'll go with you.
Any other questions?
This is just a discussion.
All right, then moving on.
Liz,
We'll now move on to number
I was
10.
one of the, however many thousands of people applied, so they were interested in participating. I'm willing to help them, so I actually have a random day off that day. I'm going out.
How's that happen?
It's very strange, because I work all
Okay.
day, except for right now, I'm hanging out with you guys.
Item number 10, discussion of wastewater plant master plan. So what this is just to give the council a heads up. So what we're doing is Clint and I have started working on the wastewater plant master plan, which is basically figuring out the layout. We've got the berm, we've got the fences, where the equipment is going to go. Ultimately, we're going to have to expand the plant, we know that. Where should we rearrange things?
This is kind of high level, it's the next step, right, as part of the impact fee structure. We know the sizing requirements based on the assumptions, land use assumptions, so now we can start to figure out within the footprint that we have,
Exactly.
what actually fits for what we need.
So one of the things which is driving us forward is Ed's had a lot of conversations with COSUR on the dark skies, and before that I met with them several times to discuss some issues, and COSUR has been very responsive, and so one of the first things we have to get squared away down there is we have to figure out the utilities. So utilities are overhead, which is no good. We've got to, they know, we've already met with them, they're going to put in transformers, they're going to have to figure out the best way to lay power to all the equipment, and in order to figure out the power procedures, how we're gonna put underground power, we have to know where everything's gonna go. So we have to come up with the basic site plan and where everything is gonna lay out at the sewer plant before they can then go ahead and do the power. So we're at the point now where what Clint and I are trying to work on is eventually coming to council and saying, here is the way this thing is finally going to lay out. So at the end of the day, this is what the sewer plant is going to look like. Now, in order to get there, we have to there's 10 steps between now and then. So, before we get there, we've got to move the fence over there. The drying bed has to be relocated to there, etc.
The fence isn't even in the right spot.
Yeah, so it's going to, then we'll come back to the council and say, look, in order for us to ultimately expand the plant, we have to get these 7 steps out of it. It's kind of like the fire hydrant project. We come and say, this is the scope of the project. And then what we do is then we start picking them off as we go. The council then says, okay, let's spend $30,000 and do, part numbers 1 through 4. Let's get the underground utilities in, let's get that. So that's where we're headed, is down that path. But the first step is we have to get together and come up with this master plan. And so that's me and Clint working with the engineer, working with Mark Patterson, working with Sam Morgan, and working with COSER, basically trying to come up with the layouts. That's where we're at. But,
The other piece we talked about too, not really here, but just when I had a discussion with Daryl, is to maybe kind of reorganize, or take the CICA board and create a committee too that actually does a master plan review or CapEx type review. So I mean, we've had a positive experience with the impact fee, maybe just kind of continue and roll that on.
yeah, I think it was Clint and I talked about it, it was Clint's idea. That these kind of capital projects, these long, big capital projects, it wouldn't hurt to have a sounding board to say, what do you think? Does this make sense that we would, we're going to run the sewer plant left to right instead of right to left, or if we move this over here, is that just as a sounding board? I think that was a great idea.
To use it also to help maybe prioritize some of the CapEx projects. What other way to? Because we have that, right? Well, here's 5 or 6. What are the highest priorities?
So it's just it's a process that we're starting, and again, part of the idea that we're trying to get to is we need like when we got that ground storage tank, we put it in. We already had a water master plan. We knew exactly where the tanks go. Everything was already laid out. So when the time came, we got that tank. We were able to move quickly because we knew exactly where to put it, where the plumbing goes. Everything was ready, laid out. So it's the same thing. We don't want to wait till it's 3 years from now and we need to expand the sewer plant. And now we got to figure out how to move the fence. Or, oh crap, we have overhead utilities and now the pole was in the way. So it's easier to plan out something that's going to, we need in 3 years, and then at our pace, get it ready. That's a much easier way to go since we don't have a public works department that working 24/7. So anyway, there's nothing to show you. It's just letting you know that that's going to be coming back to you periodically as we start working on it. But